Discussion of the proposed update to land use component of the comprehensive plan with the associated plan map. Nope, this is on our wrong date. I'm going to click again on this same link and see if it pulls that one up. This one, I clicked on the wrong one or the wrong thing opened. All right, file AM000125, comprehensive plan map amendment, rural residential to transition, and then file ZC00225, zone change, rural 5 to suburban. So at this time, we'll call for conflict of interest.
Commissioner Domke has no conflicts of interest.
Commissioner Corn has no conflicts.
Commissioner Williams has no conflicts. With that, we'll turn it over to our planning department.
Okay, Commissioners, ZC2, I see that it's second on the agenda. However, that was a continuation. If you're interested in hearing that first. In addition to that, the applicant is requested for a date and time certain.
So there's a request for a continuance
Correct.
on this one. Okay, let's,
If you're open to rearranging the order of the agenda this afternoon.
so that they can leave. Is there any issue? Does the board have any issue with that?
Nope.
Lauren, can you pull up our calendar, because they would need a... How much time was desired?
The applicant's reps here. I don't know what that request is.
I think 6 weeks would be great.
6 weeks, okay.
On the zone change file.
Yeah. Wednesday, no, Ron is out of office on that day.
Monday the 27th?
We could do Monday the 27th, or it looks like Monday, November 3rd. We have all afternoon open.
Commissioner Corn, do you know if the 27th works for you? I know you're out the rest of that week.
Oh, yep, I am. Actually, I have myself out on that Monday. I
Oh,
believe.
okay. The commissioner's calendar's not updated to that then, just so you know.
It shows it on my phone, but for what that's worth.
Hey, if you say you're out, then
So
that's what
it'd
we
be
need to know.
safer, I guess, the following week.
November 3rd?
Or that Thursday, November 6th is wide open.
You said that out loud, it's gonna fill up now.
Instead of, so when you look on that Tuesday, though, our business meeting is the only thing on that Tuesday. Instead of taking a day to just having just a meeting, instead of being able to get some work done, what if we just did it on that Tuesday,
On
The 4th?
the 4th?
There's a planning commission upstairs all afternoon because I think elections.
Those meetings don't start till 4:30.
But that's not it, that
Oh, okay.
wouldn't take up the time.
So if we did it at 1 o'clock?
Yeah, and then that,
4th?
if we did 1 o'clock on the 4th, it would allow us to leave a day that's open to not have a meeting.
Lock out like 1 to 3?
Yeah, does the board have an issue with that date and time? Okay.
Does
So
that work for the applicant?
That works.
Okay. At this time, we'll entertain a motion regarding rescheduling to a date certain the zone change file.
I move to reschedule ZC 0002-25 zone change rural 5 to suburban to a date time certain being October 4th, 2025 at 1 p.m. I'm sorry, November 4th, 2025 at 1 p.m.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any comment from the public on this item? Seeing none, deliberation by the board. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Korn,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes?
Commissioner Donkey,
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, file AM 0001-25. I did call for conflict of interest already, so we can go into our presentation. Does anybody need assistance, hearing assistance? Mayor Grimm? Okay, all right, it's to you. Do you want me to, so sometimes you guys ask to read it. Do you want- I can read it.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to go over the public hearing procedures.
Sometimes staff reads it, but it's okay. So the way that the hearing goes is staff presents the staff report, the applicant will provide an overview of the project, then we will go into public testimony in support, then in neutral, and then in opposition. Public testimony may be limited to 3 minutes. Exhibits must be numbered prior to testimony. Exhibits will be retained by the county. Testimony must be specific to the project and code compliance. Please avoid repetition. Then there's applicant rebuttal. No further public testimony is allowed after the rebuttal. The public hearing is closed, and then the Board of Commissioners will deliberate. All right.
Commissioners, good afternoon. Daniel Britt, planning staff for the record. We're here to discuss file AM 0001-25. This is a request from rural residential to transition for a comp plan amendment. This is the code section for which this request was reviewed against. The applicants are requesting a comprehensive plan map amendment from rural residential to transition. The purpose for this request is to support a future zone change request. The proposal is 3.52 acres. The property is located on the southeast corner of Highway 95 and East Newport Road in Sagal. This is taking a look at the property. The current designation is rural residential. So the rural residential is reserved for areas provided for residential development in areas where urban services are not available and slopes may vary up to 30%. These areas include hazard areas and critical wildlife habitats where lower density reduces potential of impact to resources and exposure to the loss of property or lives. Small-scale agricultural uses and residential developments are permitted. Proposed designation is for transition. The transition classification is reserved for those areas in the county where a mixture of land uses can occur, which may include higher density residential uses, commercial, industrial, light industrial uses. Due to the intensity of land uses, these areas require primary transportation routes, urban-like water and sewer services, fire and police services. So some background on this particular parcel. It is unplatted. It is approximately 3.52 acres. The current zoning is rural 5, and the current land use designation is rural residential. Access is from Old Highway 95 and East Newport Road. Some environmental factors that are found on this property. The site does contain map slopes from 0 to 30% or greater. The site does not contain map wetlands. The site does not contain any map lakes or streams. The parcel is within Special Flood Hazard Zone X. Soil on the property is Bonner Gravelly Ash Silt Loam. It is well drained and all areas are prime farmland. Services to the property is an individual well, an individual septic system. Fire protection is afforded through Sago Fire District. Utilities is provided by Avista Utilities and is within Lake Pend School District number 84. So services, the proposal is currently adjacent to one parcel designated transition and is adjacent to an Idaho State Highway and a BNSF railroad track. Approximately a quarter mile south of the proposal are two parcels that are comprehensively planned transition, and approximately 3/4 of a mile south is a square mile of land that is currently designated transition. Transition designation requires fire and police service. The parcel is within the jurisdiction of the Bonner County Sheriff and Sago Fire District. In addition, the parcel contains an individual well and septic system. This area of the county does not have urban services available for water and sewer. However, hard service roads, electrical power, and telephone utilities are in the area. This is the area that we're talking about that's showing the transition pieces that were mentioned in the previous slide. So road requirements. The transition map designation definition requires parcels to have primary transportation routes. Rural residential transportation does not address transportation requirements. However, the land use matrix table of the current 2005 adopted land use component on page 22, notes 1 and 3, has general transportation criteria for the rural residential and transition classification. For the rural residential, roads generally can be to the public right-of-way, paved or gravel, private easement, and meet the International Fire Code standards. Transition generally can be can be hard surface, major or minor collector frontage, U.S. highways, principal arteriaries, public right-of-ways. The parcel is adjacent to Highway 95, which is a mapped primary road. Old Highway 95 is a mapped local road, and East Twofoot Road is a mapped secondary road. This is taking a look, a slide that's representing those transportation routes around this parcel. Those that are highlighted in green are Bonner County owned and maintained roads. So looking at the slopes, the transition land use designation definition does not consider slopes on properties. However, the proposed land use matrix table found in the current 2005 adopted land use component, page 21, indicates that the slope of 0 to 10% are appropriate on properties. The rural residential designation is appropriate where slopes may vary up to 30%. Map slopes on this parcel appear to be 0 to 30% or greater. The parcel appears to be generally flat, and any map slopes on this parcel appear to be trees, structures, and street ditching. So this is taking a look at the slopes layer that we have. When you look at the east there, that's the ditching that's mentioned, and in this area, those are treetops and the structures where that's picked up. The adopted hazardous area component on page 5 map indicates this area has slopes of 0 to 14% rise. The avalanche hazard on map on page 7 indicates that this area has a low hazard area. This component does not have mapping included. This component does not have mapping including for floodplain for this area. However, the Bonner County internal map viewer does not indicate that the proposal is within any floodway or floodplain. This is taking a look at that slope hazards for Bonner County that's found in the comp plan. And when we look over to the slide at the right, with the layers turned on for floodway and the flood hazard zone, nothing appears on this parcel. Critical wildlife. The proposal does not contain any mapped wildlife habitat. Currently adopted natural resources component on page 21, quote, of all the endangered and threatened species of plants and animals as classified by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Bonner County is designated critical wildlife for bull trout only. Lake Pend is approximately 7 miles away as a crow flies from this proposal, and this is taking a look at that critical wildlife map. Small-scale agricultural uses. The current use of this property, as found in the narrative statement, is currently a small-scale home-based business selling agricultural-based products. Example, they're selling red worms and eggs out there on the property currently. The list of agencies that were routed for this file are found in the file this afternoon. The following agencies provided comment: Bonner County Historical Society, Idaho Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Quality, Northern Lights Incorporated, and Van Health District submitted comments. Kootenai Pond Ray Sewer District, Idaho Department of Fish and Game, Idaho Department of Water Resources, and TC Energy replied with no comments. Public comments were received from the time this staff report was prepared. Planning Commission recommended approval on this request. The vote was unanimous. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions commissioners may have.
Does the board have any questions for staff? All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeremy Grimm with Whiskey Rock Planning Consulting on behalf of Wayne and Kimberly here today, the owners of the subject property at the corner of US 95 and Dufert. I think you're all relatively familiar with the property. The request before you is a comprehensive map amendment from rural residential 510 to transition along with our subsequent action, if this is approved, for a rezone to commercial. That's the ultimate goal here. Kim and Wayne are worm farmers, and you can imagine you have to sell a lot of worms to pay for this process. So we are approaching this very cautiously, one step at a time, to make sure that we are not spinning our wheels or wasting money. So this request originally came up because Wayne and Kim reached out and said, we want to do more than sell worms. A lot of our clients are fishermen and fisherwomen, and there's a real opportunity here. We're at the intersection of multiple lakes, as Shepherd Lake, Mirror Lake, Round Lake. There's a lot of people out there wanting some sporting equipment and things like that. How do we go about doing that? And the path forward is basically trying to look at the comp plan and the zoning and what fits this area so that they can open a small scale, commercial retail store for hunting and fishing supplies and, of course, worms. It's a pretty modest request, 3.5 acres. And, it does sit in an area that is already pretty rather intense. It's changing. We've got industrial across the way. We've got rural service center in proximity and adjacent to it, and commercial zoning adjacent to it. Within about 1,400 feet, there are numerous commercially zoned parcels, and the county's own solid waste collection site is just kitty corner across the road, and that generates quite a bit of traffic. The Millers have operated this small home-based business. It's called Fishers of Men Bait and Tackle. They've been doing this for several years. As I mentioned, they raise worms on site and sell bait to local vendors, maybe even national vendors someday. The current residential R510 designation isn't really a great fit for this parcel. First, the parcel is less than 5 acres, so it doesn't even meet that standard. Second, it's really no longer reflects the land use character in the area. There are a number of service-oriented and commercial uses steadily moving and expanding in the area. The requested transition designation would allow a potential commercial rezone. And this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, specifically the intent of 12325, which does call for small to medium scale commercial uses that service the immediate need of the area and surrounding rural communities and visitors. The project doesn't involve large scale development, but rather it formalizes and allows for some modest expansion of an existing home-based business in an appropriate location. In terms of impacts, there's not expected to be any change to noise, light, or traffic levels beyond what already exists there, adjacent to Highway 95 and sandwiched between the railroad. Any commercial use here will be very compatible with those primary noise generators. But most importantly, this proposal helps address a sincere and real community need, which is providing local access to sporting goods and recreation supplies without requiring people staying at Round Lake or enjoying hunting and fishing in this area to drive all the way to Ponderay or Sandpoint or further afield to get another hook or another bag of worms or maybe someday, broadheads for archery or some ammo, who knows. But the goal here is to support residents and visitors and reduce unnecessary trips by providing those services that are in demand out there in proximity to those recreational opportunities. So in closing, it's a pretty modest request that appears to be common sense, an adjustment that would take the comprehensive plan designation to transition at this intersection, like the other properties in the area that have slowly transitioned to commercial or other higher intensity uses. The purpose provides support for a longtime Bonner County family and business to continue to take advantages of the opportunities here and the changes that we're seeing. In summary, it's consistent with the comp plan in that it supports small and medium retail serving residents in rural communities and visitors. It is compatible with surrounding uses. It's not large-scale development. There's no real impacts because this property is already below the minimum lot size and it is sandwiched between the railroad and the highway. It does support the recreation economy and family-owned businesses. It reduces car trips to Sandpoint, and it provides a necessary recreation and sporting good provisions locally. So with that, I just would like Wayne and Kimberly just to introduce themselves and describe sort of their history and vision for you, and then answer any questions any of us can for you. Thanks.
You guys
just
can
have to go
grab
up to
that
that
microphone if you want, or you can kick him out of the podium. Either way. And then just state your names, please.
I'm Kimberly.
Yeah, and I'm Wayne.
Wait.
So, go ahead,
Oh, just, you
We're-
tell them the vision.
Our vision is when we started the thing and we come up with the Fishers Men, we are Christian based. And I want to be a support also. I want this business to later to where I can help young men and people that are struggling drugs. I want to help the community in that area with this. I'm already selling to a lot of suppliers. I just took on Cabela's, so I'm going to be supplying worms to Cabela's, which is great. We supply worms to Round Lake, to the state parks. We've already been getting them and supplying worms to them, which is the night crawlers and red worms. And we do have people in the community just really liking the ideal and supporting us and behind us. It's been really amazing. That how I got to give God credit that He's blessing us and the way the business seems to be growing. We're supplying, I think, about 37 stores now in the Panhandle that we are taking worms to, and our customer service is just being really appreciated. Growing so fast now, I'm gonna have to put a cooler in. We started out last year. I think my first year of starting this thing with selling worms was like 150,000 worms, which ain't many. It sounds like a lot. The big companies and big people that does this, they do a whole lot more. But I went to this year to 450 and maybe 1 million worms. It looks like I've got 1 million contracted for the coming year. So we're growing really fast on supply of worms.
And Kimberly, maybe just state how long you lived there and what you've seen change
I've
over
been
time.
there since 1968. We moved up, my father moved up here. We stayed all summer at the end of Long Bridge, right there where the picnic table is. Parked our Airstream trailer, and my dad said, I'm going north, and when I find it, I'll know. My dad was born 1911, and we stayed all summer there. he ended up getting that property just to rent, to park the Airstream, and ended up living there the rest of his life, and I'm still there. Don't want to go anywhere. But I do know that they're gonna come through eventually, and the highway's coming through to expand and stuff. We're aware of that, yeah. Yeah, but for right now, we've got a big humongous shop there, and so we want to turn it into something there that we can do at home and stay right there and just pursue our dream of
Work on retirement.
worms. It sounds funny, worms though, but yeah. But yeah, we want to do more and stuff, yeah. I go over, do deliveries, and yeah.
And some of it's the retail tackle that they want to sell, and maybe some
Yeah,
archery stuff as well.
Yeah, we like to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
A little bit of, people come all the time, do you sell fishing licenses? Do you do this? Do you do that? But we want to do in the wintertime, there's the ice fishing there on Cocolala, which is really big, and we do
Yeah.
the other kind of baits, yeah.
I'm gonna do setups for tournaments to help them with the ice fishing and stuff. Fish and
Yeah.
Wildlife is
Yeah.
really liking that idea, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just working out really good, so.
Okay.
Any questions, commissioners, at this time?
I only wanted you to comment on one thing from a planner perspective, because it's something that comes up when we're talking about changing, and it's this soil type is all prime ag soil.
Yeah.
And so can you give a comment as to how this change doesn't negatively impact that?
Yeah.
So that,
And
you guys can have a seat, you don't have to stand up
Okay.
there the whole time.
Commissioner Williams, you questioned, how does the prime soils come into play? So I guess I'd say the comprehensive plan does a great job emphasizing the criticality of those prime soils. This is where we can grow food for our community. And they are scarce and very valuable for their primary use. In this sense, it is sandwiched between a railroad and a highway and Dufert Road, and likely going to be paved at some point in the long-term future if the state ever has the money to upgrade 95. So I think you have to, look at your comprehensive plan and, as you hear me say, is it in conflict with it? I mean, you're not gonna be able to, not everything's black and white in your comprehensive plan, your decision-making, so there are gonna be edge case scenarios where you say, see the intent, the spirit of the comprehensive plan, or maybe the letter. In this case, it may not meet the letter, but it meets the spirit, and in that case, I think that's your sort of responsibility as electeds to interpret your comprehensive plan. What was the intent of it? In this case, talking about 3 acres of, a spot it's not likely to become an agricultural center, although I'd say the worms maybe tie into that.
I think worms do tie into that. I just wanted to comment on that. And when you look at the 2 tables that we're talking about, do you see more being hit on the residential table than the transition from the planning perspective?
Well, I look at the whole corridor, and I know you're in the middle of an update to your comp plan map, so I look at what you have there. I'm not shy to say I think all comp plans should be looked at as a watercolor, aspirational, not bright line like zoning. So when you look at this corridor and the intersection, what planners would call a node, you've got a lot of activity going on there. You've got the EMS and the refuge center and industrial. So in this area, I see rural residential adjacent to a highway at a busy intersection. It doesn't feel rural residential to me. So I'd say you have the ability to look at your comp plan map in some cases, as a watercolor, and there aren't those bright edges. It's more of a fuzzy edge. And I think that gives you the flexibility to make good decisions.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Mayor Grimm? Or Mr. Grimm, because I say Mr. in this meeting.
I do have a question for the applicants. I appreciate and I like your vision. Of course, that can't play into my decision right now. I have to understand what the rules are. And I'm trying to differentiate. So I understand there's a small scale, I'll call it, home-based business right now that's a commercial business that's supplying a product off of the property to retailers. And it sounds like the goal is to upsize that commercial business to increase its productivity. And so I'm just trying to make sure I understand, current activities, because there's talk about agricultural uses on the property in the application. So farm-based, if you would, agricultural products, eggs and things of that nature, and then wanting to turn it into a transition designation, which would allow for a full commercial, industrial, or high-intensity residential, high-density residential use. Because regardless of what your aspirations are, if the property changes ownership and it has a different land use designation, it means it can be used for any of those things potentially if it meets other criteria for zoning. So we have to consider all of the possible outcomes, not just what your goals are right now. So I'm just trying to understand, there's a little lack of clarity for me on the commercial discussion as far as current uses versus future intent.
Yep.
So if you guys could maybe just help clarify that a little bit more, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely, I can speak to that, Commissioner Domke. So you're absolutely right. Anytime you change, less so the comp plan, but the actual zoning, you do open it up to everything in that zone. And as you mentioned, the commercial zone could allow some larger types of uses, though it does prohibit high-intensity commercial uses. The goal here is, they want to open up basically a bait and tackle shop and be above board and have people coming in to buy worms, broadheads, maybe some archery supplies during hunting season. It's those moose bombs or whatever they are for elk hunting, or they just want to do that and see where it goes. And they're restrained right now by the zoning. So that's the ultimate goal is a retail store. I don't think it's going to be, maybe it'll be a new store, but I think it's going to be run out of their shop and their outbuildings right now, and combining that with that worm development. Now, when you talk about, options, if, Kimberly's lived there most of her adult life. I don't see them selling out tomorrow and doing this. This is their passion and their mission. But you do have a tool available if that is a sticky wicket for you, which is not something I see happen frequently in Bonner County, but it is a tool available to you, which is that conditional rezoning. And we would be agreeable to that if that's a big issue for you or the public, to restrict this to just retail tackle and bait store rather than an archery. We'd have to work out the wording, but the intent isn't to pull a fast one, get this rezoned to commercial, and put up something that's totally consistent with their plan. So if this is an issue for you, we could approach that at the rezone process, which we won't take unless the comp plan gets changed. So I'm probably famous for saying we can address that down the road, but that would come at the rezone application when we went from actual to try to commercial, zone it commercial. And we could put those constraints on it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Any further questions for?
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. So at this time, we will go into questions from the public. So we'll start with opposition of the project. No hands up, and then we will move to neutral for the project. And then support of the project. Mr. Bowman?
So Dave Bowman here. You turned it around. You almost always start with those in support of.
I flip-flopped. I was going from memory because the screen isn't up that tells you, so.
Yeah, okay. So first thing, I was looking at the agenda, and it's a comprehensive map amendment from R5 to transition, but R5 is a zone. So I don't know, for your records, you may want to, I guess it's a scrivener's error or whatever, but it just should be at least be noted. So a couple of things. I rarely agree with Mayor Grimm on his projects when he presents them, but he did a great job today. And I was at the Planning Commission hearing for this. And as some of you might know, I am rarely in favor of a map amendment like this for an individual property owner. But if ever there was a case where it was appropriate, this is it. I mean, as Mayor Grimm said, it's stuck between Highway 95 and a railroad track. You're not going to be growing corn there. It's kitty corner from the dump and the EMS station right along. I mean, it's perfect. And what these people want to do with it is absolutely appropriate. And if it grows into something a little bit more commercial, what's the problem? So I would highly recommend that you pass it. And when they move on to the rezone, I'd be in support of that as well. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else in support?
No hands up.
All right, so we will go to rebuttal. Are you okay? I think you should just let it ride. It's just we sit here for a minute.
Was that a pig that flew by?
You have taken the words out of Mr. Grimm's voice, but we still have to ask, would you like to say anything after that?
Rebuttal, you mean, in terms of, opposed, we have no rebuttal.
What are you moving for? That's, he's gonna go buy a lottery ticket now. Okay, all right. So there's no rebuttal, so we will close public comment and go into deliberation by the board.
I would like to say one thing. AI says that worms like loamy, silty soil. So you could farm worms in this kind of soil, evidently.
Yes.
Just wanted to throw that out there. AI knows everything, right?
I trust the worms more than AI.
They seem to like it pretty good.
If I may.
Sure.
So Mr. Bowman brought up a potential issue with the agenda, and when looking at it for file AM 125, it does specifically state rural residential to transition, and then the first line, it says the applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan map amendment from rural 5 to transition. So yes, there's a Scrivener's error in that, but it's essentially on both. The header says rural residential to transition, so that's it.
Yeah, it's in the description.
Yep.
Thank you.
I guess from my perspective, because the heading, I see the heading as being the greater value of the hierarchy of the information. I think it was clear what the intent was, so in my opinion, I think we'd be okay continuing.
I'm fine continuing as well. I think that there is an error there,
Yeah,
but it is
it was a good
clear.
catch,
So I
it's
think
just-
it's worth noting, as Mr. Bowman pointed out, that there was an error, but why we're going to proceed. All right, do we want to go to comprehensive plan analysis or any more comments? Are you ready to go through? Okay. Property rights.
I found that this proposal is not in conflict with property rights. And I would suggest adopting the staff report.
I agree.
I concur.
Population.
I find it to not be in conflict and adopt the findings of the staff report.
I agree. Commissioner
I
Korn.
agree.
School facilities and transportation.
Find it to not be in conflict and adopt the findings of the staff report.
I concur.
I agree, and maybe even a few field trips down there.
Economic development.
I think this actually supports our economic development, so definitely is not in conflict. And I would move to adopt the staff report.
I concur.
I concur. Land use?
I find that it's not in conflict and adopt the findings of the staff report.
I agree.
I concur. Natural resources?
I don't see where this impacts any natural resources, so I would say that this would comply with this policy and adopt the staff report.
I concur.
Yeah, I'll just say I looked only at policy 6. It says productive farmland, timberland, and mining land should be identified and protected from adverse effects of adjoining developments. In this case, it's kind of the reverse in my mind. This parcel is the potentially productive farmland that's already has adjoining developments that sort of preclude it from really being highly productive in the future. So I ultimately concur with you. I just wanted to point out that on the surface might appear to be in conflict, but I think it's actually an inverse situation with this particular parcel given the surrounding uses.
Hazardous areas?
I found that this is not in conflict with the comp plan, so I would adopt the staff report.
I agree.
I concur.
Public services, facilities, and utilities?
So this is the one that I have, that just causes me to pause. Policy 1 says encourage high-density development to take place within the boundaries of existing sewer and water areas. The struggle I have is the intent described by the applicants is not a high-density development, but that's where it goes back to the transition designation of the land would allow for that in the future as a zone use. Or I should say it could allow for it in the future as a zoned use. So it's, I'm really on the fence with how to interpret this one, so I'd like to hear the other commissioners' perspectives on it.
I didn't find it in conflict because I think that for me, what that allows for is that the map change allows for it to increase. Similar to what you're saying, it doesn't mean that they have to hit the highest density, but that they have the room to grow to that. And so I didn't find it in conflict with that because if the first sentence of this is actually encourage, and so it doesn't mean it's not a shall, that's a requirement, it's an opportunity for that growth. And so essentially it allows their business to be able to grow to high density. It doesn't require them to be high density. And so I interpret it as not in conflict because a change to the zone, to the map itself, is just allowing for the growth that they may realize that people want more than 1 million worms in a year and they need to grow.
We're not talking about worm density.
So that's how I interpreted it. It's encouraging that, and their business might have a plan, but kind of similar to the comment about that you made earlier on, the zone change itself allows for increased density, and their intent is one thing, but someone else's intent is something different. I think that this is in line with that same logic of the zone itself can grow based on the designation, but not that they're required to grow as the transition.
Yeah, I found that it was not in conflict. In fact, looking at the matrix on the transition, it says urban-like. And there's a lot of transitional properties, as was stated earlier, along that corridor 95, and there's no public water sewer systems there either, because it's not a higher density businesses, I guess, in those areas, even though there may be commercial businesses. So I don't find that being in conflict either.
Appreciate those perspectives.
Any comment on your position on that? Do you find it in conflict or?
I will agree with my fellow commissioners, it's not in conflict.
Transportation?
I find that this is not in conflict and adopt the findings of the staff report.
I agree.
I agree. Recreation?
I found that this is not in conflict with this part of the comp plan and would adopt the staff report.
Concur.
I agree. I did say recreation, right? Special areas or sites.
I find that this is not in conflict and adopt the findings of the staff report.
I agree.
I agree, and I don't really like the policy one, so I always like to add that based on the lack of response from the historical, because we don't know the answer to that one. That's supposed to be given to us. So, housing.
I find that this is not in conflict and adopt the findings of the staff report.
I agree.
I agree.
Community design.
I found that this is not in conflict with this part of the comp plan either and would adopt the staff report.
I concur.
I agree. All right, we have gone through the comprehensive plan.
Agriculture.
Am I missing one?
There's always one left.
Agriculture, last one.
I find that this does comply with our comp plan, as they can farm their worms there, and I would suggest adopting the staff report.
I concur.
This one only gave me pause because of the prime ag soil on it, and the transitional change can allow for that to actually, regardless of what their intent is, it can allow for it to be concreted over. But I will say that Mr. Grimm's comment about that use will let me say yes on this one, but that was my concern, was their use is going to still utilize the value of that soil, but it's that if someone else comes along, that can go away. But I also equally agree that that corridor is changing significantly, and it does look concreted over. This just happens to be, and so as much as I hate the watercolor kind of concept, I think the future of that area is more industrial concrete than it is actual agriculture. And in that case, kind of like there happens to be prime ag soil on that piece of land in a corridor of industrial commercial uses. But that one did give me pause, but the presentation by Mr. Grimm will have me concede that, but noting my comment on that, because we're going to go into another hearing about the zone change, and I think that will be more where we consider that aspect a little bit more.
Yeah, I go back to, from my perspective, I have to assume the most intensive allowed use may occur in the future. And even though it's the soil is good for agriculture, I think everything else that's happening around it makes it not good for agriculture. The adjacent uses just really make that very preventative from a traditional agriculture perspective. So.
I don't disagree.
I disagree a little bit on the thoughts that it could become concrete. Unfortunately, I think it'll probably more likely become asphalt.
Gotta love a corn comment. I'm gonna
It's the vision that I
disagree and say, no, we're
unfortunately.
just gonna throw gravel because we can't afford either. How's that? Okay, are we good?
I'm always good.
All right. Okay, so that was the last one. So at this time, are we ready to entertain a motion regarding file AN 001-25?
Do you want to go back up to the comp plan designation criteria? We didn't really have
Maybe
that
not.
discussion.
Okay. Would you like to start then?
Sure. So it goes back to me for the difference between the land use designations for the map of rural residential versus transition. For rural residential, it says urban services not available, so that works with the service question. Slopes may vary up to 30%, so that works. Small scale agricultural uses, right, can be appropriate and permitted. We know that's viable. But I do go back to the location is really it's not rural. And this is one of those gray areas where I can check the boxes on the things that fall under rural residential definition, but in a practical perspective, the location doesn't make sense for that use. And the only hangup I have when I look at transition designation is the urban-like water and sewer services, knowing that we're dealing with individual well, individual septic. But the terminology is vague because it says urban-like, it doesn't say urban services. We have a definition of urban services in Title 12, but urban-like is undefined. And so that's where I was initially concerned about whether or not I could say that this qualifies for the transition designation. But I think the fact that the word urban-like is used instead of being specific to our definition of urban services, I can accept that if we allow this to be changed over to a transition designation, that ultimately the rezone request will look at the services and what they can support, and the limitations built within the zoning criteria will determine what is considered acceptable. So I typically don't like saying that'll get figured out later. In this case, I think that is an applicable response to say that the use tables and the other definitions within our zoning code can determine what will be considered appropriate level of intensity that can be supported. That and/or DEQ, PhD will determine what can be supported with the public type system versus a private system. And we have a public comment from PhD about that, actually. So from that perspective, I can check the box with the urban-like water and sewer services.
I don't disagree. I think this is actually one of those files where this is why you have the board, because of the need to interpret what the intent is. And I think that the area itself around this particular property is in a way pushing it to the transition. And so you have to let go of some of the things that are in this list that this piece of property might be. You can check more boxes on the rural residential side than you can on the transition side. And so when you're looking at, do you change the map? Traditionally, you would say no, because you do fit more of these boxes on paper. But when you look at the area itself and the vision of that area that already exists, the vision doesn't fit the paper image. And I think that's where that interpretation of the vision of the comprehensive plan comes into play of, are we following the vision with what has happened versus what is in those two boxes? And that's where I think the interpretation of the board is really being used to say this one, the vision of the area is in line with what the request that is being made. It does show that it checks more of the boxes of what the current zone is, but when I look at it, it doesn't look like that's what that area is. And I think that's, and in part why I wanted the comment about the soil itself, because that always comes up, and why that can't be a deciding factor on everything that we do, because when it does come up, and it's rare that it comes up where it says it's all prime ag soil, to say, wait, we're not preserving that, because the comprehensive plan asks us to pay attention to that. And in part, does that play a bigger role than what the area is? And for me, the answer is no, because the vision of the area is the transition that's being requested. And if that means in this case that that soil goes away, then that soil goes away, because the map of what we are doing is in line with what the request is. But your residential section, you hit more of the residential section than the transition. But the area, I agree with the comments made that it is a commercial kind of area right now.
Yeah, it's kind of odd in that this parcel has almost become an island for a rural residential use. And for me, it is. I'm pretty heavy on checking the boxes, but the context of the surrounding area is the opposite of what this is designated as right now. So I'm in agreement with the conclusion. So,
Commissioner Korn, do you have a comment?
I see no conflict.
Okay. Are you ready for a motion?
I am.
Do you want to make the motion?
I do. Thank you. I move to approve this project, file number AM0001-25, requesting a comprehensive plan amendment from rural residential to transition on approximately 2.794 acres, generally located in Section 32, Township 56 North, Range 2 West, Boise Meridian, Bonner County, Idaho, finding that it is not in conflict with the policies of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law. Conclusion 1, the proposal is not in conflict with the policies of the Bonner County Comp Plan. Conclusion 2, this proposal was reviewed for compliance with Title 12, Bonner County Revised Code, and is found to be in compliance. Conclusion 3, the proposal is in accord with the purpose of the transition comp land use designation. This motion is based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report or as amended during this hearing, and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this motion, have the chairman sign, and transmit to all interested parties. This action does not result in the taking of property, private property.
second?
There's a motion and a second. Any further deliberation by the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Downey,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes?
Commissioner Korn,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. It is 2:27. Let me keep scanning. Is it all the way, where is the resolution? Where's the resolution? Do you have a resolution in yours?
I don't see one.
I do not have one.
We don't have a resolution.
Then if it's not, if you don't have a motion for you, you don't mind if we bring it to the next business meeting.
Okay. What is the resolution, trying to see, because we're not here next week. Yeah. Is that, okay. Okay, all right, so that'll work. We can just bring it to the next business meeting and do the resolution. All right?
23rd.
Okay. All right, it is 2:28 and this meeting is adjourned.